Grave Digger Queen here, and I'm checking my emails. Junk. Ooh, Nigerian prince. You'd think by now that Nigerian prince had enough money to get his funds unfrozen. Ooh, looks like a story by Harlii. This one isn't a Zac story, this is a Harlii story. How delicious. Dybbuk. Sounds like an 80s house mix. Let's work. Dybbuk. The name of tonight's tale is Dybbuk, written by Harlii and co-written by Montsho Shelby. It started off like a normal Saturday. The twins were at karate lessons. I don't know what the hell possessed me to do that, but I swore I'd never let them be victims. I sat there and Whisper shot me a look. Mom, go! So I moved down the hall. Their teacher thought it might be a good idea. I returned a call to Zac. He had told me to get in touch. It was an emergency. I sighed and hit his number. Before I could speak, Harlii, I found it. That was the call, and I knew. Zachary? That was what I tended to say when I wanted him to spill it. The muffled sounds of "Hiya" could be heard. I plugged one ear and moved. Is everything okay? He did have me concerned. I found it, he said. I fucking found it, he said. I felt myself get hot. Not a turned on kind of hot. The kind before you pass out. Nervously, I said, Wait, you found it? Where? What does it look like? Is it big, like ornate? Is it bigger than a bread box? I said, fanning myself. Calm down, Harlii. You're gonna give yourself a stroke. Then I'm gonna have to feed you applesauce before you see it, he said. Nah, not ornate. Actually, cedar. I could only assume it's to keep the odor down. Never in the history of the world has calm down ever calmed a woman down. I will bring it by. No, let's go to your friend's museum. I don't want to chance this at your house, not with your kids. It's a plain box covered in gold wax. Whomever put it together was serious as fuck, he said. Harlii, we need to talk about some ground rules. Suddenly, I was pouting like the white girl on Scream Queens. Go ahead, I said as he yammered. You're not gonna give this to your friends. You know what I mean. Although that fucker would deserve it. I stopped him. Go on, Zac. It would not have been my first choice, but... kind of offended you think that would be my first choice. Zac was silent, then he spoke. Anyways, drop your girls off at your mom's. I will meet you at the museum. I made sure Zac knew that there could be no way Mom could ever know. Latinas and spirits. Then there was me. I could have sworn I heard him call me gorgeous as he said he'd see me later. I didn't really care, but I knew one thing. I wanted that box. I dropped the girls off after class, fulfilling the promise of the Lord's chicken. They loved it so. I gave it to them. Now, this museum is not a typical museum. People dropped items off they thought were haunted, and Ashley, holding his glass of pink champagne, deemed it haunted or not. On multiple occasions, I heard him turn folks away. He opened the door. The museum was run by Ashley. Cute, little blonde, maybe 40, Ashley personified the old school gay male. This would be good. Honey, what do we have here? I said, Dybbuk box. He looked at me like I was daft. That was when I realized he meant Zac. I hid a smile. Zac showed up with that box. Ashley, of course. Enchanté. Zac held out his hand. Typical New Yorker. What's up, man? He replied, business as usual. I saw the box in all its glory, and I squealed. For those that aren't familiar with what it is, a Dybbuk or Dybbuk in Jewish folklore is a disembodied human spirit that, because of former sins, wanders restlessly until it finds a haven in a body of a living person. Well, I had no intention of being a host. Ashley's eyes lit up. Put it there. He set the glass down. Where did you get your hands on this? He asked and held out his hands for the EMF reader. EMF, please. I reached in my bag and gave it to him. He ran it along the box and that fucker beeped non-stop. Your kid's got the real deal Holyfield, he said, which went over my head. Ashley looked at me. It's legit. I took out my phone and recorded. Ashley said, okay, I'm gonna break the seal. And just as he was about to, wait, what? He stood there with a smirk. Before Zac could even spiel, crack! That seal was fucking broken. Instantly, the beeping stopped and Ash opened the box. A huge white crystal was inside and a piece of paper, bound. What's that? Zac said. He didn't answer. Lights flickered and a huge crash could be heard. Instinctively, I screamed. Zac was on me like a pair of Fruit of the Looms. Ash looked at us. He said. Looking back, was he insinuating I didn't have time for that? Crash! Ashley ushered us out. Go, 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 he said urgently while snatching up his keys. I have to grab my cat Fisher. Meet you at the waffle place. He was gone, leaving us in the dark in a creepy-ass museum while he disappeared to who knew where. Me and Zac made it to the Waffle House. Zac was visibly shaken. Hey, you okay? He didn't look up from his coffee. Be better if... He smirked. You are on autopilot. He shrugged. You asked, I told. I reached out my hand and touched his. You know we gotta go back. Ashley was right there like magic, standing there with a smirk on his face. Aw, I see why you keep him to yourself. Can't say I blame you. He made a gesture to scoot. I let Zac's hand go. There was no point in explaining when folks had it in their mind. You're correct, Harlii. We go back equipped, so I know you have stuff in your cars. I nodded. We do. We should get going. Zac pulled out his raggedy wallet and pulled out a 20. Let's get going. When we got back to the car, Zac was in his own head. The drive back to the museum was 15 minutes, but in that time, we didn't say much. The only time I'd ever known Zac to be introspective was when he was high, so unless he ate an edible when I wasn't looking, I don't know. The fuck's up with you? I said. What are you talking about? You haven't brought up shit you saw on YouTube or a case in 10 minutes. I'm stoic. Since fucking when? Zac took a moment before answering, as if he was finally gonna spit out what the fuck crawled up his ass. Why'd Ashley want us to run in the first place? I know that box had some bad shit about it, but why run the moment it starts doing weird shit? I don't know, Zac. You ever heard of self-preservation? I just don't want to go back there. I squinted my eyes with suspicion. You're actually scared. No, Zac said. I didn't believe him for once. I was definitely going to get to the bottom of this shit, but we had made it to the museum by then. So are you coming in, or do you need a Midol or something? Zac rolled his eyes and got out of the car. Back at the museum, we stared at the upstairs window, lights flashing, off, on, and then stopped. It knew we were there. Ashley moved on, gesturing for us to follow. See, should have regifted. He shook his head, and we were waiting to go in. Release all negative thoughts, Ashley said. Before opening the door, his eyes closed, a silent prayer was said, and we entered. Inside, he pulled candles out of a drawer, lighting them. I don't know who you are. Gonna set out some things. Maybe you would like to answer some questions. I rummaged through my bag. A blue, a black, and a red flashlight were removed. I crouched down and loosened the cover, twisting them slightly. Stay with me here, so a spirit or whatever could twist slightly, if we were to hit on something. I set them out gently on the floor. If you want to speak to us, twist these if you wish to be seen. I barely got my words out when, bam, it was like being at a fucking rave. Lights went on and off, something crashed. Meanwhile, I bolted. Zac grabbed me, hoping to catch me. Nope, not me, as my favorite YouTuber says, I said, shaking my head much like him. Zac, I doubt much frightens him. He stared, wanting info I was too afraid to ask. I see you. We are not here to hurt you. Are you good or evil? Turn the red flashlight off. He paused, looking at me. Do you wish to harm us? He asked. The red light went off 3 times. I hoped it wasn't 1 for each. 1 blink for yes and 2 for no, said Ashley. The light flickered twice, dropping the visibility to nothing, then returned. That's a good sign, said Ashley. Do you have unfinished business? Ash asked again. The flashlight flickered once. Of course he has unfinished business, Zac said. Is there something that perhaps I can help you with? Said Ash. It flickered once. I'm gonna go get something, kids. Hold on a minute. Ash sashayed out of the room quickly. We should go now. I don't like any of this, said Zac. Ashley returned to the room with a Ouija board. He put the board down and spoke again. What is it we can help you with? Said Ashley. The letters moved the small cursor which Ash moved on his own. It hovered over G, E, T, O, U, T. Get out, Ashley said with confusion. The lights flashed like crazy and the candles erupted in what looked like torch fire. Get out, came a voice that bounced all over the room, knocking over trinkets and knickknacks. Zac scooted away from the table. Okay, fuck this, I'm out, he said. Before I could tell him shit, he was on his way out of the room. Ash and I got up to follow him. We ran up to him as he hit the stairs. As I opened my mouth to speak, Zac went into his pocket, took out a knife, and lunged at me. I dove to the side, and he missed me completely. Ash ran over to help, but he wasn't so quick. Zac stabbed Ash in the back. I scrambled to my feet and tried to push him off Ash, which was probably a stupid idea in hindsight. Zac flipped his wig, sure, but he was still a man, and he kicked me off of him like the Hulk. He yeeted me down museum stairs with that hit, which meant I was falling for a very long time. I could hear grunting. I think Ashley and Zac were fighting, but I could only see them in between wicked spirals of me rolling. As I got to the last step, I think I went out because I lost a few seconds of time. A hand violently gripped my shoulder. I swung immediately and hit Ashley in the chest. His shirt was red with his own blood, and he was walking on feet that couldn't support his weight for much longer. I saw Zac running down from the top of the stairs, babbling incoherently. I think I could make out the words, "I'm not going back," somewhere in there. My head was swirling, so I couldn't imagine what Ashley was feeling after getting stabbed so many times. I'm not a doctor, but looking at the blood leaking out of him, I wasn't even sure why he was still standing, let alone running. I ran for the front door, but Ashley grabbed my elbow. He screamed in pain at even the slightest jerk. No, it's locked. My keys are upstairs. We don't. He got cut off when we saw Zac right behind us. It would have almost been funny if it weren't so real. We took a sharp right towards the mummy enclosure. There was a door. We ran to it. The moment we shut it, there was a loud bang of impact from the other side. Ash and I held the door for dear life. Even 2 of us against Zac was barely enough. I looked over and saw a fire axe. It crossed my mind for a moment to take it off the wall and use it, but for only a moment. I wedged the axe in between the door and it held. "You won't do this to me again!" Zac yelled at us like a psychopath. As I turned to Ash, he would have fallen over if I hadn't caught him. Path led down to the basement. We could hear Zac throwing himself at the door. Ashley finally had to sit down. There was no amount of adrenaline that was going to keep him on his feet after losing that much blood. I scrambled frantically looking for anything that could stop the bleeding. There were old boxes and relics that put me in the mindset of the old Indiana Jones movies, but Ashley was too fucked up to find any of that funny. I found some gauze in an old first aid box that looked like it was made in the 70s. Ashley mumbled to himself, or maybe to me. His teeth were chattering like he was freezing. "Why did you want that box?" Ashley said weakly, just to keep himself conscious. I ripped his clothes and found he had been stabbed 2 more times that I didn't see. One in the stomach, the other in his left arm. I furiously got to rapping, but I knew I couldn't let him lose consciousness. I had a similar situation happen to me when an old boyfriend had a seizure and hit his head after seeing the castration scene in I Spit on Your Grave. I wanted it because it was what started it. How so? All families have legends, secrets. My uncle, he kept that box for years. He always told me he had to protect it from what was inside. Then what happened? He died one day with the box in his hand. I found it. I buried it because I thought it was evil. A year later, they turned his house into condos and I never knew what happened to it. 3 years ago, it surfaced on paranormal sites. It changed owners and changed owners. I don't know why my uncle died or why the box is still out there, but I feel as if that was because I didn't understand the paranormal. I let it happen. I shouldn't have let it happen. I felt Ashley's hand on my shoulder. He was much more attentive and lucid than he had been before. "It's not your fault, Sabrina," Ashley said in a way that I knew he wasn't himself. "Tio?" Ashley smiled. "Get to the box. There's a hidden compartment under a false bottom. Say the word, Sabrina." "What about Zac?" "You can't worry about him now. I will deal with him. Get to the box." Ashley stood up with an unimaginable strength. He walked up the stairs. I followed. "Whatever you do, you must get to the box, or not only your friend, but many more will die if you don't." I shook my head, but I was trembling in fear. I was no longer scared of ghosts. The fear of having to kill Zac was first on my mind. Whatever and whoever was in Ashley's body didn't seem as if he had moments to spare. Every second he used explaining things to me was another moment he weakened. Why, I don't know. I could see him holding on to his strength, struggling to stay on this mortal coil. Ashley was breathing very shallow, even though his current pep masked his dire situation. "Go, get the box," said Ashley, as he took the axe handle from the weakening door. Zac came in hot. He overshot the door, not expecting it to open. Ashley grabbed him and pulled him down the stairs with him when he fell. "The box, Sabrina!" I sprinted with every ounce of my being towards the steps to the second floor. When I was halfway up, I saw Zac charging at me like Jack from The Shining. I hadn't a clue what happened to Ashley. Zac could never beat me in a foot race, and now was no different. I had a good lead on him when I got to Ashley's office. I snatched the box from the table and looked for the secret panel as if it were the most high-stakes Rubik's Cube game I had ever played. I found a little release panel on the interior of the wooden box, and out dropped a yellowing sheet of paper written in my uncle's handwriting. I spoke the words, stumbling over them really. Zac bursted into the room like a madman. He had a look of anger and frustration that I didn't think his face was capable of making. I spoke the words while I backed up to the corner of the room, cowering like I was in a Lifetime movie, standing up against my psycho ex-husband. These magic words were necessary, and I got that, but I wasn't about to get beat to death without a fight. I half read, half rooted around for something to knock the shit out of Zac with. He came at me, and before I had the chance to swing whatever it was I had in my hand, Ashley came in out of nowhere, as bloody as Carrie after prom, and grabbed Zac. "Keep going," Ashley said. I did. I spoke the words, and as I did, the candles and lights flickered wildly. A wind picked up from nowhere I could see, and a black mist pulled out of Zac and into the box as if vacuumed. I closed the box immediately, and Zac fell to the ground like a marionette who got its strings cut. Ashley smiled approvingly and hugged me. I could hear his breaths were shallow, and he was wheezing internally. "I have to make sure it doesn't come out again," said Ashley. "Wait, is there any other way, Tio?" "If it is, I don't know it. I love you." A white mist seeped out of Ashley and into the cracks of the box. He fell, just like Zac, onto the ground. As I moved towards Ashley, someone yelled to me, and I nearly jumped to the ceiling. There were 2 policemen with guns drawn and paramedics with stretchers at the door. I bailed Zac out of jail after 2 days. Apparently, one of the security guards caught most of what happened on camera and sent for help, but it wasn't like I could explain to the popo that it wasn't Zac, it was an evil spirit. Through the grace of God, Ashley pulled through and got Zac off the hook. I saw a disheveled Zac wandering out of jail. "Did you drop the soap in there?" I joked. He smiled, but was too tired to even come back at me. "What happened to Ashley?" Zac asked. "Critical but stable condition." "What happened? The last thing I remember was the box opened, and then a cop was sticking a gun in my face." I can't say I know exactly what happened either. I think my uncle's spirit is holding some evil entity inside that thing. "So where is it now?" "At the moment, it's in a safe deposit box until I can think of a better place." "We do need to think of a better way," said Zac. "Yeah, we do. And I'm going to have to get good, because one day I'm going to open that box again and get my TO out." Beautiful tale, Harlii. Thanks for sharing. I have so many haunted items, maybe I should just send them all your way so I can get a little story out of them. At one point I thought my computer was haunted, but come to find out I just don't know shit about computers. At any rate, good luck on finding your uncle, baby. Maybe we'll have a tale about that one day, if you survive it. Night, children.